Commander Zareth stepped off the transport ship and onto the Nexus station. The massive space station floated in orbit around a neutral star, far from any homeworld. She smoothed down her uniform and lifted her chin high. Today was important. Today would change her future. The Galactic Matrimonial Summit happened only once every 10 years. Leaders and important people from 47 different species came here to make alliances through marriage. It was politics, but it was also tradition. A good marriage could make a family powerful. A great marriage could change the fate of entire worlds. Zareth was Velkarian. Her people were proud and strong. They lived for 300 years, much longer than most species. They had telepathy, which meant they could touch minds and share thoughts. They had reflexes faster than computers. They were warriors, diplomats, and scholars. In Zareth's opinion, they were the best the galaxy had to offer. She walked through the grand hall of the station. Everywhere she looked, she saw different species. The Quartzen were there, tall beings made of living crystal that sparkled under the lights. The Krillians stood in groups, their forearms moving as they talked, their warrior culture obvious in every gesture. The Morphids shifted shapes constantly, never looking the same twice. Each species was impressive in its own way. Her aide, a younger Velkarian named Tosh, walked beside her with a data pad. "Commander, I have the list of potential suitors. Would you like to review?" "Yes," Zareth said. "Show me the most promising ones first." Tosh scrolled through names and images. Lord Kexar of the Krillian Empire. Military commander, strong political connections, controls 3 star systems. Zareth nodded with approval. "Excellent. Who else?" "Prince Shimmer of the Quartzen Collective. His family controls the largest crystal mines in the sector. Very wealthy." "Good. Continue." They walked past a group near the registration area. Zareth glanced over and saw a small delegation. They wore simple blue uniforms with a symbol she recognized. The flag of Earth. Humans. She made a small sound of dismissal. Tosh looked up from the data pad. "Is something wrong, Commander?" Zareth gestured toward the human group with her head. "The humans are here. I'm surprised they were even invited." Tosh looked confused. "Should they not be?" "They're barely a factor in galactic politics," Zareth said. She didn't bother to lower her voice. "They live less than 100 years. They have no natural abilities. No telepathy, no enhanced strength, no special evolution. Their planet is small and their influence is limited. They're unremarkable." One of the humans turned slightly. He was average height for his species, with dark hair and calm brown eyes. He had clearly heard what Zareth said. For a moment their eyes met. The human's expression didn't change. He simply nodded politely and turned back to his companions. Zareth felt a small flash of something. Guilt? No, certainly not. She had only spoken the truth. "So we're not considering any human suitors?" Tosh asked. "Absolutely not," Zareth said firmly. "I'll marry anyone except a human. They have nothing to offer. Now let's review the rest of the list." They moved on, but Zareth found herself glancing back once. The human was helping an older member of his delegation with their bags. He moved with quiet efficiency, no drama, no show of strength. Just simple helpfulness. She shook her head and focused on what mattered. The opening gala was tonight. That's when everyone would make their first impressions. The gala took place in the grand ballroom of the station. The room was enormous, with windows that showed the stars beyond. Each delegation had a chance to present themselves and show what made their species special. Zareth watched as the Krillians demonstrated their combat skills, moving through a practice fight that was like a deadly dance. The Quartzen showed how they could resonate and create beautiful music from their crystal bodies. The Morphids became a wave of shapes, each more impossible than the last. When the Velkarians' turn came, Zareth joined her people. They demonstrated their telepathy by solving a complex puzzle together without speaking a single word. They showed their speed by moving through an obstacle course faster than most eyes could follow. The crowd applauded with approval. Then it was the human's turn. The same man from earlier stepped forward. He introduced himself as Captain James Chen, a diplomatic officer. He didn't try to show superhuman strength or special powers. Instead, he told a story. "We humans are not the strongest," James said. His voice was calm and clear. "We are not the fastest. We don't live the longest. We were born on a world that tried to kill us in every way possible. Ice ages, predators, diseases. We had no claws, no venom, no armor." He smiled slightly. "But we're still here. We learned to adapt. When we were cold, we made fire and clothing. When we were weak, we made tools and weapons. When we were alone, we made communities and civilizations. We're not special because of what we were born with. We're special because of what we chose to become. He showed images of Earth, cities reaching toward the sky, ships traveling between stars, people of different types working together, art, music, and science from thousands of cultures. We believe in cooperation, James continued.
We believe in solving problems together.
We believe that the best future is one where everyone has a voice. That's what we offer. Not power. Not superiority, partnership. The crowd was polite but not overwhelmed. Zarath found the whole presentation boring. Pretty words, she thought, but where's the real substance? Where's the strength? She literally turned away before James finished speaking. She had more important people to talk to. The rest of the evening, Zarath mingled with potential suitors. Lord Kexar was impressive. He spoke of military victories and political strategy. He was clearly powerful and confident. Prince Shimmer was charming and wealthy. The representatives from a dozen other species all had something special to offer. At one point, Zarath found herself near the refreshment table at the same time as Captain Chen. She was reaching for a drink when he spoke. The Valkyrian presentation was impressive, he said politely. Your people's abilities are remarkable. Zarath was surprised he would speak to her after she had dismissed his entire species. Thank you, she said, her tone cool. I've read some Valkyrian poetry, James continued, particularly the works of Thazin the Wanderer. The way he wrote about seeing eternity in a single moment. It's beautiful. Now Zarath was genuinely shocked. Thazin was not a famous poet. His works were studied by scholars not known by outsiders. You know Thazin? I studied your culture before coming here, James said simply. Seemed like the respectful thing to do. Before Zarath could respond, Lord Kexar appeared at her elbow. Commander Zarath, you promised me a conversation. Of course, she said. James nodded politely and moved away. As she talked with Kexar about military alliances and territorial agreements, Zarath found her mind wandering. Why would a human study obscure Valkyrian poetry? Why would he bother? It didn't matter, she decided. James Chen was still human, still limited, still not a real option, but somewhere in the back of her mind a small question had formed, and it wouldn't quite go away. The summit would last for 2 weeks. There would be trials, tests, and chances to interact. Zarath was confident she would find the perfect match from among the truly worthy species. She had no idea how wrong she was about to be proven. The next morning, all the delegates gathered in the main conference hall. An ancient archon, one of the station's neutral administrators, explained the rules. The trials of compatibility would test potential couples. These weren't just games. They were serious tests to see if two different beings could work together, think together, and maybe build a future together. Zarath sat with the other Valkyrians, feeling confident. She had decided to partner with Lord Kexar for the trials. He was strong, ambitious, and from a powerful family. Together they would be unstoppable. She noticed Captain James across the room. He was paired with a female morphid named Celeste. They were talking quietly, and James was laughing at something she said. Zarath felt an odd twinge in her chest. She ignored it. The first trial was called the Intellectual Challenge. Pairs had to enter a simulation room where they would face a complex diplomatic crisis. They had to negotiate peace between 3 warring factions, each with different needs and cultures. The test measured intelligence, creativity, and problem-solving. Zarath and Kexar went first. They entered the simulation, and holographic representatives appeared before them. The 3 factions immediately started arguing. One wanted territory, one wanted religious freedom, one wanted resources. Kexar's solution was direct. We'll support the strongest faction, he said. They'll win the war, and the others will have to accept the terms we set. Zarath used her telepathy to scan the simulated minds, finding their fears and desires. Together they crafted an agreement that gave the strongest faction most of what they wanted. The other 2 factions were forced to accept or face destruction. The simulation ended. The Archon announced they had completed the challenge successfully. But the Archon also noted that 2 of the 3 factions were unhappy with the result. Conflict would likely continue, Kexar shrugged. They got peace. That's what matters. Zarath felt a small doubt, but she pushed it away. They had succeeded. That was the point. Then James and Celeste entered the simulation. Zareth watched through the observation window. She told herself she was just curious. James did something different. He didn't threaten or push. He asked questions. He listened to each faction's story. He found that all three groups had been hurt by the same corrupt leader generations ago, and their anger had been passed down until no one remembered they had once been allies. He helped them see their shared history. Celeste, with her shape-shifting abilities, took forms from each culture to show unity. James suggested splitting the disputed territory into a shared memorial park, honoring the victims from all three groups. The resources would be developed together, profits shared equally. When the simulation ended, all three factions were satisfied. The Archon announced they had achieved not just peace but actual reconciliation. Zareth frowned. "He took too long," she said to Kexar. "In a real crisis, speed matters." "Exactly," Kexar agreed. Human weakness. They overthink everything. But Zareth kept thinking about it. James's solution would last. Hers might not. She didn't like that thought. The second trial came 2 days later. It was the physical challenge. Pairs had to pilot small ships through a dangerous asteroid field. The field was filled with spinning rocks, radiation pockets, and narrow passages. Speed and skill were everything. Kexar was an excellent pilot. His forearms moved across the controls like a symphony. His reflexes were incredible. Zareth used her telepathy to predict the movement of asteroids by sensing the gravitational fields. They flew through the course fast and hard. Asteroids whipped past their view screen. Twice they scraped against rocks, but their shields held. They finished in record time. When they docked, they were breathing hard and grinning. "That's how Krillians do it," Kexar said proudly. Then James and his new partner, a quiet arachnoid named Silk, began their run. Zareth watched the tracking screen. James flew differently. He wasn't fast. He was careful. He calculated each movement, using minimal thrust and conserving energy. He took a longer path that avoided the most dangerous areas. Halfway through, another pair's ship had engine trouble. They were stuck in the middle of the field with asteroids closing in. James immediately changed course. "What is he doing?" Kexar asked. "He'll lose time." James positioned his ship to shield the damaged vessel. He used his tractor beam to push dangerous asteroids away, while Silk extended her web-like appendages to stabilize the other ship. James calmly talked the other pilot through an emergency restart procedure. The other ship's engines fired up. James made sure they were safely out before he continued his own course. He finished last. But when he docked, the pair he'd saved was waiting. They bowed deeply, their species' gesture of deep gratitude. Other delegates watching had seen what happened. There was quiet murmuring of approval. Zareth found herself walking over to James. "You lost the race to help them," she said. She wasn't sure if she was criticizing or asking. James smiled tiredly. "It wasn't a race to me. The trial was about navigating danger. We all got through safely. That seems like winning to me." "But you're rated last now," Zareth said. "I can live with that," James replied. "Can the person I didn't help?" He walked away, leaving Zareth standing there confused by her own swirling thoughts. That evening there was a formal dinner. The seating was arranged by the organizers, mixing different species together. Zareth found herself at a table with James, two Quartzan, and a Morphid couple. At first, conversation was awkward. The Quartzan spoke in musical tones that were hard to follow. The Morphids kept changing form, which some species found disturbing, but James seemed comfortable. He asked the Quartzan about their music, genuinely interested. He didn't flinch when the Morphids shifted shapes. "How do you do that?" Zareth asked James quietly. "Stay so calm with everyone?" James thought for a moment. "On Earth, we have thousands of different cultures, different languages, different beliefs, different ways of living. If you grow up human, you learn early that different doesn't mean bad. It just means different." "But you have no telepathy," Zareth said. "How do you really understand anyone?" "We talk, we listen. We try to see through each other's eyes, even when it's hard." James smiled. Maybe not having telepathy made us better at actually communicating. We had to work at it. Zareth used her telepathy to lightly touch James's mind just at the surface. She expected to find ego or calculation. Instead, she found genuine warmth and curiosity. He wasn't trying to impress anyone. He actually cared about the people he was talking to. She pulled back quickly, confused by what she'd felt. Later that night, Zarath met with Kexar privately. He was in a good mood, confident about their prospects. "We're the strongest pair here," he said. "Everyone sees it. What do you think of the human?" Zarath asked, not sure why she was asking. Kexar laughed. "Chen? He's weak, soft. He wastes time helping others instead of focusing on winning. That's why humans will never be a major power. They're too nice." "But his solutions work," Zarath said slowly. "His methods create lasting results." Kexar waved a hand dismissively. "In the short term, maybe. But in the long term, only the strong survive. That's universal law." Zarath wanted to agree. It was what she'd always believed. But something nagged at her. If only the strong survived, why were humans spreading across the galaxy? They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons. By all logic, they should have died out on their own world. But they hadn't. They had survived ice ages and plagues. They had gone from primitive hunters to space travelers in just a few thousand years. They had done it not because they were strong, but because they adapted. Because they cooperated. Because they never gave up. Zarath stood at her window that night looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, that small blue world that had produced creatures like James Chen. Unremarkable creatures who somehow did remarkable things. She thought about the trials. Kexar had won both times by the official scoring, but James had achieved something different. He'd made allies. He'd shown character. He'd proven that kindness wasn't weakness. Zarath had dismissed humans as beneath her consideration. Now she was starting to wonder if she'd made a mistake, not just about James, but about what actually mattered in a partner. Tomorrow would bring the third trial. Zarath didn't know it yet, but tomorrow would change everything. Tomorrow, the station itself would be in danger. And when crisis came, she would learn exactly what humans were capable of. She would learn what true strength really meant. The third trial was supposed to be a cultural exchange. Each pair would create a presentation showing how their two species could blend traditions and create something new. It was meant to be the easiest trial, more artistic than difficult. Zarath woke up that morning feeling strange. She'd had dreams about James, about his calm brown eyes and the way he'd helped that ship in the asteroid field. She tried to shake off the feeling. She was partnered with Kexar. That was the logical choice. The right choice. The delegates gathered in the preparation halls. Zarath and Kexar were discussing what kind of cultural presentation to create when the first alarm sounded. It was a low, pulsing sound that made everyone stop talking. Then a second alarm, higher pitched. Then a third. The Archon's voice came over the station speakers, but it was tight with stress. "All delegates, this is an emergency. We are detecting a massive solar flare approaching the station. Our shields are not responding properly. We believe there has been sabotage. Begin evacuation procedures immediately." For a moment, everyone froze. Then chaos erupted. The Krillians immediately went into combat mode, their warrior instincts taking over. They started pushing others aside to get to the escape pods first. The Quartzen began resonating in panic, their crystal bodies creating a painful noise. The Morphids scattered in every direction, shifting into small forms to hide. Every species reacted according to their nature, their evolution, their instincts, and their instincts were making everything worse. Zarath tried to use her telepathy to calm people, but there were too many minds all panicking at once. The mental noise was overwhelming. She felt it like physical pain pressing against her consciousness. Her superior Valkyrian abilities were useless in this chaos. She staggered, unable to focus. Someone shoved past her and she fell against a wall. The station shook. The flare was getting closer. They had maybe 20 minutes before the radiation hit. Without shields, everyone on the station would die. Then she heard a voice, calm, clear, human. "Everyone stop." James stood on top of a table. He wasn't shouting, but his voice carried somehow. Maybe because it was the only calm sound in all the chaos. "Panicking will kill us faster than the flare," James said. "We need to work together now. Who are you to give orders?" A Krillian warrior demanded. "Someone who wants to live," James replied. "And I'm betting you do too. So listen, we have 3 problems. Shields, evacuation, and time. We solve them in order." He pointed to a group of Quartzen. "Your people can conduct energy. Can you get to the shield generators and try to jumpstart them?" The Quartzen looked at each other. One stepped forward. "Maybe. If we resonate at the right frequency." "Good. Go. Take anyone who knows engineering." James turned to the Krillians. You're strong and fast. We need someone to clear the blocked corridors. Debris fell when the station shook. People are trapped. The Krillian warrior who'd questioned him nodded slowly. We can do that. Morphids you can fit into small spaces. The life support system is failing in some sections. Can you access the maintenance tunnels and reroute power? The Morphids stopped scattering. Their leader solidified into a stable form. Yes, show us where. James looked around. Humans, Velcarians, and anyone else who can stay calm. We're on evacuation coordination. We need to get the young, the injured, and the essential personnel to the escape pods first. Organized, no pushing. No panic. He jumped down from the table and immediately started moving. Not running, moving with purpose. And somehow, impossibly, people followed him. Zareth watched in amazement. James had no authority here. No rank that anyone recognized. He was human, from a species everyone had dismissed. But in this moment of crisis, he was the only one thinking clearly. She saw Kexar across the room. Her partner was arguing with another Krillian about who should evacuate first. He wasn't helping. He was competing. Even now he was competing. Zareth made a decision. She pushed through the crowd toward James. "What can I do?" she asked. James looked at her with those calm eyes. "Can you use your telepathy to coordinate the teams?" "I can't be everywhere at once, but if you can link minds..." "The panic is too loud," Zareth admitted. "I can't focus." "Then link with me first," James said. "Use me as an anchor. Humans don't have telepathy, so maybe my mind will be quieter." It was a strange idea, but Zareth was desperate. She reached out with her telepathy and touched James's mind. It was like stepping into calm water after being in a storm. James was scared she could feel that, but he had pushed the fear down. He was focused entirely on the problems, on the solutions, on helping people. There was no ego, no self-preservation instinct drowning everything else. Just clarity. Using him as an anchor, Zareth was able to extend her telepathy outward. She linked the Quartzen team, helping them coordinate their resonance. She connected with the Krillians clearing debris, showing them the fastest routes. She guided the Morphids through the maintenance tunnels. James coordinated everything, and Zareth made sure everyone could hear his instructions telepathically. They became a team, human and Velcarian, working as one. 15 minutes passed. The Quartzen managed to get partial shields online. Not full power, but enough to maybe deflect some of the radiation. James was everywhere. Zareth watched through her telepathic link as he carried a Quartzen youngling, who was too heavy for most species. His muscles strained, but he didn't stop. She saw him talk down a panicking Krillian guard who was about to attack someone. She watched him help an elderly Morphid who couldn't shift forms fast enough. Then disaster struck again. A secondary explosion rocked the station. Part of the corridor collapsed. James was there helping a group evacuate. Zareth felt it through their link before she saw it. Debris falling. Heavy metal beams. James pushed 3 people out of the way. The beam fell directly on him. "No!" Zareth screamed. She ran, faster than she'd ever moved. When she reached him, James was pinned under the metal beam. His face was pale with pain, but he was still conscious. "I'm okay," he gasped. "Help the others." "Shut up," Zareth said. She tried to lift the beam. Too heavy. She called for help telepathically. 2 Krillians came. Together, they lifted the beam enough for James to be pulled free. His left side was badly injured. Burns and crushing damage. He needed medical attention immediately. Zareth started to call for a medic, but James grabbed her hand. "No time," he said through gritted teeth. 5 minutes until the flare hits. The last evacuation pod. "You need to coordinate. You're injured," Zareth said. She felt something strange. Tears. When had she started crying? "I'll slow you down," James said. "Go, please." Zareth looked at him. This human who she dismissed as weak. This human who'd been everywhere, helping everyone, never thinking of himself. This human who was willing to die to make sure others lived. "Why?" she asked. "Why did you save them? Why risk yourself for people who dismissed you? For someone like me who said terrible things about your entire species?" James smiled even through the pain. "Because it's the right thing to do. That's what humans do. We take care of each other, even when it's hard. Especially when it's hard." "That's stupid," Zareth said, but her voice broke. "That's so incredibly stupid." "Yeah," James agreed. "But we do it anyway." Zareth made a decision. "I'm not leaving you." She reached out with her telepathy deeper than she'd ever gone with anyone. In her culture, this was intimate. This was the kind of mental touch reserved for family, for life partners. She entered James's mind fully and began to share his pain. Valkyrian telepathy could be used for healing. Not much, but some. She couldn't fix his injuries, but she could dull the pain, help his body stabilize. It would drain her completely, but she didn't care. James's eyes went wide as he felt her in his mind. "Zareth, what are you—" "Be quiet," she said. "Let me help you. It's the right thing to do, isn't it?" Through their deep link, she saw his thoughts, his memories. She saw Earth, that blue world, and all its beauty and violence. She saw human history, all the struggles, all the times they should have died but didn't. She saw James's childhood, his dreams, his fears. She saw his kindness wasn't a strategy. It was just who he was, and she saw what he thought of her. Even after she'd dismissed him, insulted his species, turned away from his presentation, he still thought she was remarkable. He admired her strength, her intelligence, her dedication. He had no resentment, only respect. It broke something inside her, or maybe it fixed something that had been broken all along. "I was wrong about you," she whispered. "So wrong. We need to move," James said. He was breathing easier now with her pain management. Together, they stood up together. With Zareth's support, James could walk. They made it to the last evacuation pod just as the flare hit. The partial shields held. Barely. The station would need massive repairs, but everyone survived. In the cramped pod, surrounded by delegates from dozens of species, Zareth held James and kept the telepathic link open. She was exhausted, drained from the healing, but she didn't let go. For the first time, she understood. Humans weren't weak. They were something else entirely. Something she was only beginning to understand. Something she desperately wanted to understand more. The evacuation pods docked with a nearby support ship. The crisis was over, but the summit was in chaos. The station needed repairs. Many delegates wanted to go home. The organizers debated whether to continue or cancel everything. James was taken to the medical bay immediately. The human doctors worked on him, along with a Valkyrian healer who specialized in multi-species medicine. Zareth stayed by his side the entire time. She refused to leave, even when other delegates tried to speak with her. For 3 days, James slept while his body healed. Zareth sat in a chair next to his bed. She should have been exhausted, but her mind wouldn't rest. She kept thinking about what she'd seen in his thoughts. The depth of his compassion, the strength of his determination, the absolute lack of malice. On the 3rd day, James woke up. "Hey," he said, his voice raspy. "You're still here." "Of course I am," Zareth said. Then she realized how that sounded. "I mean, I wanted to make sure you recovered properly. Since I helped with the healing." James smiled slightly. "Sure, that's the only reason." Zareth felt her face grow warm. Valkyrians didn't blush the way humans did, but James seemed to know she was embarrassed anyway. "The station?" James asked, "being repaired?" "They're going to continue the summit, but it will be delayed by a week. Many delegates are calling you a hero. All the humans, actually. Your people saved lives." James shook his head. "Everyone saved lives. We just coordinated." "You coordinated," Zareth corrected. "When everyone else panicked, you stayed calm. You gave orders that made sense. You put yourself in danger for complete strangers." She paused. "Why?" "I told you already," James said. "No, I want to really understand." Zareth leaned forward. "I touched your mind deeply. I saw your thoughts, but I still don't fully understand how humans can be so selfless. My people are telepathic and we're often selfish. We think about ourselves first. But you have no telepathy, no way to truly feel another person's pain, yet you act like you do." James was quiet for a moment. "Can I show you something?" "Show me?" James reached for a datapad on the side table. His movements were still stiff and painful. Zareth helped him sit up, adjusting the medical bed. James pulled up files on the pad. "This is Earth," he said, showing her images. "Our homeworld." Zareth had seen pictures of Earth before. She'd never paid much attention. Now she looked closely. It was beautiful. Blue oceans, green continents, white clouds, a jewel floating in space. "It's a death world," James said quietly. Zareth blinked. "What?" "By galactic standards, Earth is classified as a death world. Extreme weather, natural disasters, deadly predators, poisonous plants. Before we developed technology, the planet itself was constantly trying to kill us." He scrolled through more images. Ice ages that covered half the continents. Volcanic eruptions that blocked out the sun. diseases that killed millions. We're not the strongest species on our own planet. We're not even close. Zareth saw pictures of Earth's predators, great cats with razor teeth, bears that could crush bones, snakes with venom, sharks in the oceans, crocodiles in the rivers. Humans had survived all of that. We're weak individually, James continued. A single human alone in the wilderness will probably die. But we figured something out early. Together we're stronger, so we formed tribes, families, communities. We learned that helping each other wasn't just nice, it was survival. He showed her images of human history, ancient cave paintings showing groups hunting together, early villages where people shared food, civilizations building cities, creating art, developing science. Every human alive today is descended from people who learned to cooperate, James said. The ones who only thought of themselves? They didn't survive. But the ones who helped their neighbors, who took care of the sick and elderly, who shared resources? They lived. They had children. They passed on their values. Zareth stared at the images. Your kindness isn't weakness. It's evolution. Exactly, James said. We're genetically programmed to care about each other. It's in our DNA. We feel pain when we see others suffering because that pain motivates us to help. And when we help others, our brains release chemicals that make us feel good. We're literally built to be compassionate. Zareth thought about her own people. Valkyrians were strong individually. They didn't need others the way humans did. Maybe that's why they never developed the same level of empathy. They never had to. Show me more, she said. Over the next hours, James showed her human history. He showed her terrible things too, the wars and cruelty. Humans weren't perfect, but he also showed her the helpers. The people who ran into burning buildings to save strangers. The doctors who traveled to war zones to heal anyone who needed it. The teachers who spent their lives educating children. The ordinary people who did extraordinary things every single day. We're not special because we're strong, James said. We're special because we try. We fail a lot. We make terrible mistakes, but we keep trying to be better. Zareth felt something shift inside her. All her life she'd believed that power was what mattered. Strength, abilities, superiority. But watching human history unfold on the datapad, she saw a different kind of power. The power of persistence, of adaptation, of refusing to give up even when everything seemed hopeless. I said terrible things about your species, Zareth said quietly. I dismissed humans as worthless. I know, James said. I heard you that first day. Why didn't you hate me for it? James smiled. Because you didn't know any better. You judged us on things we can't change. Our lifespan, our lack of natural abilities. But those things don't define us. I figured if you got to know us, you'd see that. You were right, Zareth said. She reached out and took his hand. In her culture, touching someone you weren't related to was significant. James seemed to understand. He squeezed her hand gently. Zareth, James said carefully, when you healed me, we shared a deep telepathic link. You saw my thoughts. But I also felt yours. Zareth's breath caught. She'd been so focused on him she hadn't thought about what he might have sensed. I felt how you saw me at first, James continued. The dismissal. The certainty that humans were beneath you. But I also felt when that started to change. During the trials, during the crisis, he paused. I felt what you feel now. What do I feel now? Zareth asked, though she knew. Respect, James said. Curiosity. And maybe something more. Zareth wanted to deny it. This was foolish. Humans lived barely a century. She would outlive him by 200 years. Their species were completely different. A relationship made no political sense. But she'd spent her whole life making decisions based on logic and politics. And where had that gotten her? She'd nearly chosen Kexar, a man who was powerful but selfish, a man who cared more about winning than about people. James was different. James was... I want to understand humans better, Zareth said finally. I want to understand you better. James smiled. I'd like that. Over the next several days while the station was repaired, Zareth spent all her free time with James. She read human books. She watched human films. She listened to human music. She learned about Earth's thousands of cultures, each one different but connected by shared humanity. She learned that humans said, I love you to family and friends easily. That they hugged each other for comfort. That they cried at movies and laughed at jokes that didn't translate well. That they kept pets, animals they domesticated not for work but for companionship. that they believed in hope, even when logic said there was none. She also learned about James specifically, how he'd wanted to be a teacher but became a diplomat instead to help prevent wars, how he'd lost his father young and it made him want to protect others, how he loved old books and terrible puns and spicy food. With each day, Zareth felt herself falling deeper into something she couldn't quite name. The summit was ready to resume. The organizers announced that the final trial would proceed. Zareth knew what she had to do. She found Kexar in one of the common areas. He was boasting to other Krillians about his bravery during the crisis. Zareth noticed he didn't mention how he'd fought with his own people instead of helping. "Kexar," she said, "we need to talk." He turned to her, smiling confidently. "Commander, are you ready to prepare for the final trial? Together we'll certainly win." "I'm ending our partnership," Zareth said clearly. Kexar's smile faded. "What? You heard me. We're not a good match. I'm choosing someone else." "Who?" Kexar demanded. "Who could possibly be better than me?" Zareth lifted her chin. "Captain James Chen, the human." Kexar stared at her. Then he laughed. Actually laughed. "The human? The weak, short-lived human? You're joking." "I'm not," Zareth said coldly. "James showed more strength during the crisis than you did. He helped people while you competed with your own team. He risked his life for strangers. He's more worthy than you'll ever be." Kexar's expression darkened. "You're making a mistake. Your family will be ashamed. You're throwing away your future for a creature who'll be dead while you're still young." Those words hurt, but Zareth didn't let it show. "Maybe. But I'd rather have a short time with someone who makes me want to be better than a long time with someone who brings out my worst." She walked away, leaving Kexar standing there in shock. Zareth found James in the observation deck looking out at the stars. When she told him what she'd done, he was quiet for a long moment. The news of Zareth's decision spread through the delegates like wildfire. A Valkyrian commander had rejected powerful suitors to partner with a human. It was shocking. Some found it romantic. Others found it ridiculous. Zareth's family called her from their homeworld. Her mother's face on the video screen was cold with disapproval. "You're destroying our family's reputation," her mother said. "The Krillian Empire is insulted. Lord Kexar's family is demanding an apology." "Then I apologize for wasting their time," Zareth said calmly, "but I won't apologize for my choice. He's human, Zareth. They're nothing. They contribute nothing to galactic power. They saved everyone on that station." Zareth replied, "Including me." "That's not nothing," her mother sighed. "If you go through with this, there will be consequences. Political consequences. Personal consequences." "I understand," Zareth said. "I'm doing it anyway." After the call ended, James found her. "Your family is angry?" "Very. We can stop this," James said gently. "I don't want to ruin your life." Zareth took his hand. "You're not ruining it. You're making it make sense for the first time." The final trial was called the Trial of Unity. Each partnership had to present a vision of how their alliance would benefit the greater galactic community. It wasn't about military power or wealth. It was about ideas, about the future, about what two different species could build together. The other partnerships presented impressive proposals. A Quartzan and Morphid couple proposed combining crystal technology with shapeshifting to create adaptable structures. A Krillian and Valkyrian pair suggested a military alliance that would bring stability through strength. An Arachnoid and Ferellian couple offered trade agreements that would connect distant sectors. All the proposals were good, professional, safe. Then it was Zareth and James's turn. They stood together on the presentation platform. Zareth could feel hundreds of eyes on them. She felt James's nervousness through their telepathic link, but also his determination. "We call our proposal the Hybrid Initiative," James began. "But it's not about us. It's about rethinking what strength means," Zareth continued. "For my entire life, I believed that power came from superiority. Being the strongest, the fastest, the longest lived. I looked at humans and saw only their weaknesses." "And she was right," James said. "We are weak. Individually, humans are near the bottom of most galactic rankings. We die young by your standards. We have no telepathy, no natural weapons, no enhanced abilities." Zareth smiled. "But I learned something. Weakness and strength are not opposites. They're perspectives." James activated a holographic display. Images of Earth appeared, then images of other worlds. Every species here thinks of themselves as superior in some way. Valkyrians have telepathy. Krillians have forearms and enhanced reflexes. Quartzen have crystal bodies that last millennia. But humans have something else. We have adaptability. Humans survived a death world, Zareth explained. They couldn't win with strength, so they won with creativity. They couldn't win alone, so they learned cooperation. They couldn't win by being the best at one thing, so they became decent at everything. James showed more images. Humans working with different species. Human engineers collaborating with Quartzen builders. Human diplomats negotiating between warring factions. Human doctors creating cross-species medical techniques. The hybrid initiative isn't about combining just two species, James said. It's about showing what happens when we stop thinking about who's superior and start thinking about what we can accomplish together. Zareth touched the holographic controls. New images appeared. Imagine Valkyrian longevity and telepathy combined with human emotional intelligence. We could create counselors who could serve for centuries, helping species understand each other across generations. James added more. Imagine quartz and crystal technology combined with human engineering creativity. Structures that could adapt to any environment, any need. Imagine Krillian military discipline combined with human strategic flexibility, Zareth continued. Peacekeeping forces that could protect without conquering. They showed scenario after scenario. Solutions to galactic problems that no single species could solve alone. Refugee crises handled with morphid adaptability and human social frameworks. Resource scarcity addressed through arachnoid efficiency and human innovative thinking. Climate disasters managed with combined technologies and strategies. The galaxy faces challenges that can't be solved by being the strongest or the smartest, James said. They require all of us working together, contributing what we're good at. Zareth looked directly at the judges. I thought humans were worthless because they weren't superior at anything. I was wrong. They're valuable because they understand that no one needs to be superior. We're better together than apart, James finished. Every species here has strengths. Every species has weaknesses. The question isn't who's the best. The question is, what can we build if we stop competing and start cooperating? They stepped back. For a moment, there was silence. Then one of the judges, an ancient archon, began to speak. In all my years overseeing these summits, I've never heard a proposal quite like this. Other couples showed us what they could offer each other. You showed us what everyone could offer everyone. Another judge, a Quartzen elder, resonated thoughtfully. The human and the Valkyrian have demonstrated something profound. They have shown us that true strength lies not in dominance but in synergy. The third judge, a morphid matriarch, shifted into an approving form. They have proven that the most powerful alliances are built not on similarity, but on complementary differences. The votes were counted. When the results were announced, Zareth and James had won the highest honor of the summit. Not just for their partnership, but for their vision. The ceremony that followed was beautiful. As tradition dictated, they exchanged symbolic gifts from their worlds. James gave Zareth a small wooden box containing earth soil and a seed. Something living that will grow, he explained. Zareth gave James a crystal pendant that contained a telepathic imprint of her memories. So a part of me will always be with you, she said. But the real changes came after. Other species began approaching the human delegation with interest. The Quartzen proposed a collaborative building project. The Morphids suggested cultural exchange programs. Even some Krillians grudgingly admitted that human strategies had merit. Zareth's family eventually contacted her again. Her mother was still not happy, but she was less cold. The council has noticed your success, her mother said. They're creating a new position. Unified ambassador. They want you and the human for the role. James, Zareth corrected. His name is James. Yes, James. Her mother's expression softened slightly. I still think you're foolish. But perhaps it's a useful kind of foolishness. 6 months later, Zareth and James served as co-ambassadors on the newly formed Unified Council. They worked from a station that orbited between multiple homeworlds. Every day brought new challenges, new species to understand, new problems to solve. One evening, they stood together in their private quarters, looking out at the stars. Zareth had her hand resting on James's shoulder. Through their telepathic link, she could feel his contentment. Do you regret it? James asked quietly. Choosing me? Zareth turned to face him. Every single day. James looked startled until he felt her emotions through the link. She was joking, mostly. You're difficult, Zareth continued. You insist on helping everyone. You take on too much. You make decisions with your heart instead of your head. You're going to give me stress for the next 70 years. Sorry, James said, smiling. Don't be, because you're also the best decision I ever made. Zareth touched his face gently. You showed me that I was measuring worth with the wrong ruler. I spent centuries thinking I knew what mattered. You taught me everything in a few weeks. I didn't teach you anything, James protested. You learned it yourself. I just gave you a chance to see differently. That's the most human thing you could say. Zareth laughed, taking credit for nothing while doing everything. James pulled her closer. You know I'm going to die while you're still young. Maybe in 60 or 70 years. You'll have 2 more centuries without me. I know. Zareth had thought about this often. The pain of it never went away completely. But she'd made peace with it. My people live for 300 years. We get comfortable. We forget that time is precious. But you humans, you live like every day matters because you know it does. You taught me that. So yes, I'll lose you someday, and it will hurt more than anything I've ever felt. But I'll have loved you, and that will matter for all my remaining years. That's beautiful, James said softly, and terrifying. Love usually is, Zareth replied. Through their telepathic link, she shared a vision with him. A future where their work continued, where human-alien partnerships became common, where species stopped seeing differences as weaknesses and started seeing them as opportunities, where the hybrid initiative became more than a proposal but a reality. She showed him something else too, something she'd been thinking about. Children, human Valkyrian hybrids. The medical technology was advanced enough now. Their children would be something new, not fully human, not fully Valkyrian, but something beautiful in between. James saw the vision and his emotions flooded through the link. Joy, fear, hope, love.